This is Colin O'Keefe for LXPN TV. The Washington Post recently ran an interesting article on the FCC potentially creating free super Wi-Fi networks that could potentially pose a threat to the wireless industry. Joining me to discuss the story is Dana Frix, managing partner of Chadbourne and Parke's Washington, D.C. office and author on the firm's blog, TMT Perspectives. Dana, does this actually pose a threat to the wireless industry? There was talk of this potentially replacing internet and phones for some people. So does this pose a threat to the industry?
Thanks, Colin. Great question. The short answer is it really does not. The Washington Post article was misleading. Let me give you just a little bit of background. So in February, early February, Washington Post released an article saying essentially that the FCC has a plan to establish a nationwide Wi-Fi network. Now, the implication of that is that there is going to be at some point in the near future a nationwide Wi-Fi network that presumably would be ubiquitous. And then second of all, some sense, I think, that it would be inexpensive, maybe free. Is that the FCC has no such plan for a nationwide Wi-Fi network. What the article was discussing, in fact, was something that is fairly interesting that's going on, which relates to the FCC's plan to cause some of the broadcast television stations in the country to auction off some of their spectrum. And as part of that process, what the FCC is proposing is that it will retain certain swaths of spectrum that will be for unlicensed use. Now, noting that there is going to be spectrum that will not be occupied by someone who owns it is a far cry from whether or not there will be a nationwide Wi-Fi network. In fact, it is unlikely that that the FCC's plan will result in a Wi-Fi network. I don't think there's enough spectrum. It's entirely possible that spectrum won't be nationwide. And then lastly, you'd have to have somebody who wanted to use that spectrum and to incur the costs of developing the infrastructure and carrying the transportation costs for that purpose. So it's possible that it will ultimately result in Wi-Fi in certain areas, but certainly not a nationwide Wi-Fi.
Why do you think then that the Washington Post chose to run this article?
Well, you have a fight currently in the marketplace between the telecom and cable infrastructure providers, the cable companies and AT&T and Verizon, let's say, and Windstream as well, the folks that serve the rural communities. And then also the West Coast group, the internet, we'll call the internet companies. That's really probably not exactly fair, but we'll call the internet companies. We'll use Google as the prime example. So perhaps the Washington Post article was trying to engender further controversy between Google and the telecom infrastructure players. There's no question that the Google-like companies would like to see us to have a broader data service that is more ubiquitously available for people at a lower cost. It increases the value of their products substantially. So there's no question that a national Wi-Fi network would benefit them. What's interesting, to some extent, and maybe this is what the Washington Post article was getting to, it is interesting that Google and the other internet companies have not fought harder for the establishment of something that looks like a nationwide Wi-Fi network.
Absolutely. The free transmission of data is something that could certainly benefit these internet companies and everyone for that matter. Again, that was Dana Frix of Chadbourne and Parke and TMT Perspectives. For more of his insight on this and other stories in the telecom, media, and tech industries, be sure to visit tmtperspectives.com. And for curated commentary from the Lex Blog Network's thousands of authors, along with more video interviews from LXPN TV, be sure to visit us at lxbn.com. Thanks, Dana.
Thank you.